Conversation with the candidate continues right now.
Thank you for clicking on our extended digital conversation with the candidate, Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and UN ambassador. We want to get to as many town hall questions as we possibly can. I'll again jump in with some follow-ups and some viewer questions from online, but we want to get things started right now with Charles Jesse.
Hi, Charles.
Hello, welcome back to New Hampshire.
Thank you, it's great to be back.
Children and young adults in schools and colleges have become a major political battleground for ideological causes, including, but not limited to, firearms policy, gender identity, what and how we remember racism in our nation's founding and growth, and freedom of expression in the so-called woke cancel culture. What balance do you support between parents, students, educators, and maybe the educators' unions, government, in addressing the upbringing of our next generations? Does it take a village to raise a child?
You know, as a mom, I really do worry about what's happening in education. And the problem is people need to be honest about what's happened. You know, they're all saying, oh, this is what COVID did to us. Truth, we had a problem with education before COVID. You look at what we had, 70% of 8th graders in our country pre-COVID were not proficient in reading. 67% of 8th graders were not proficient in math. It just came out a couple weeks ago. The numbers are even worse on history and civics. Then you go and you add 2 years of lockdowns, and our kids are in a world of hurt. Yet we still have 90% of American children under critical race theory, where if a little girl goes into kindergarten, if she's white, you're telling her she's bad, and if she's brown or black, you're telling her she's never going to be good enough, she's always going to be a victim. You've got biological boys playing in girls' sports. It's the women's issue of our time. Where is everybody? I mean, my daughter ran track in high school. I wouldn't even know how to have that conversation with her. How do we get our girls comfortable with biological boys in their locker rooms? That's not what we're supposed to be doing. That's not who we are. You look at Dylan Mulvaney, right? The Bud Light person. Make no mistake, that is a guy dressed up like a girl mocking women. We don't act like that. So what are we telling our girls? And then we wonder why 1/3 of them seriously contemplated suicide last year. We're supposed to grow strong girls, confident girls. All this woke ideology in the schools has been a massive distraction when it comes to educating our children. The first thing is teachers just want to teach. That's what they went to school. They want to teach math, science, history, English. That's what they care about. But parents want to be able to be the ones that parent. We don't need anything happening in a classroom that we don't know about. There should be full transparency of what's being taught to your kids, what's being said to your kids, and what your kids are saying back. And the idea that we've had this disconnect between parents and children is dangerous. As parents, we have one job, and we have to get it right. So the way we need to focus is, how do we go and get our kids back on track? As governor of South Carolina, I knew if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So what we did is we started holding them back. We put in reading remediation programs. We worked with their parents. We did summer programs, and we got them back on track and set them up for success. We need to do that again. We need to have full transparency in our schools so that parents don't doubt for a second what is being taught and what is being said. We need parents to be able to decide where their kids go to school. No child should ever be mandated by government on which school they go to because of a zip code. And then we need to build things in America again. Let's go back to vocational classes in our high schools. We had apprenticeships in South Carolina, and we taught our kids how to build the things we were making in South Carolina. Let's do that across the country. When we start to focus on those things, that's when we'll be setting our kids back up for success, and we'll stop all this distraction that's hurting them from an anxiety standpoint, from a depression standpoint, and from a confusion standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question from Laura Landerman-Garber.
Hi, Laura.
Hi there. Welcome back to New Hampshire.
Thank you.
We are tired as a nation. And you recently said, I want to get the quote right so I can better understand it, that a self-loathing has swept across the nation. So my question's kind of two-part, following up on this gentleman's question. What do you mean by that? And I'm a psychologist, and self-loathing is a very alarming. It raises all the kind of red flags for me. How would you, as a president, address that issue?
There has been a national self-loathing that has taken over our country where they're saying America's bad or America's rotten or America's racist. And I'm concerned about that above all things. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, we're blessed. Our kids need to know to love America. They need to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of school every day. We need to get back to our national purpose, what it means to be an American, what it means to live in America, the fact that we are in the best country in the world. Are we perfect? No. But the principles at the heart of America are perfect, and we have to go back to that. And we have been so distracted with all these divisions. You know, I grew up the daughter of Indian immigrants in a small rural southern town. We weren't white enough to be white. We weren't black enough to be black. They didn't know who we were, what we were, why we were there. And I remember when I would get teased on the playground and I'd come home, my mom would always say, your job is not to show them how you're different. Your job is to show them how you're similar. It's amazing how our country could use my mom's advice right now. And even though they didn't know why we were there, my parents knew why we were there, because there was never a day they didn't remind me, my brothers, and my sister how blessed we were to live in America. Let's go back to that. The reason I'm running for president, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunity. I want them to know that America again. I'm doing this for my husband and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice meant something. They need to know that freedom matters and we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. And I'm doing this for my son who's a junior in college, and I'm watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, we are seeing 78% of Americans don't think their kids are going to have as good of a life as they had. I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't be okay with that. We've got a country to save. That's what I'm determined to do. We've got to get rid of that. And the tone starts at the top. The ability for everybody to know that we can self-correct. We will self-correct. But when we come back to that national purpose, and when we remember who we are again, that's when our best days will be ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick follow-up for you, Ambassador. Just out of curiosity, I've heard this line before. What is your son being forced to write that he doesn't agree with in college?
I mean, you see it. He has professors, which is just like every college in America, where they, instead of teaching them how to think, they're trying to teach them what to think. And his freshman year, he's a very strong, opinionated conservative. And his freshman year, he talked about those things that he believed in. And his grades suffered for it. And eventually, you see them breaking our kids down to where our kids, I mean, we see it in adults now, that Republicans don't feel like they can say what they believe. A lot of independents don't feel like they can say what they believe because they think they're going to get shouted down. That's what's happening in every college campus in America, is that they're having to write papers of things to satisfy the professor, but not to satisfy their soul. And that's not what we want. We want our kids to be free thinkers. We want them on their own to discover who they are, what they're made of, and why they think what they think. The idea that parents are paying for this education and then they're being suppressed into having to say things they don't believe in is at the heart of what's wrong with America right now.
Next question from Gary Evans.
Hi, Gary.
So guns are the leading cause of death of children in this country. We have mass shootings every day. We allow deranged people to walk around with AR-15s. The Republicans, your party, has blocked every measure to try to solve this problem. How would you handle this if you were president?
By being honest with the American people about what the real problem is. So when you look at this situation with guns, as a mom, I worry about my daughter's a nurse at the Children's Hospital. I worry about something happening there. My son's in college. I worry about something happening there. We all have that mom heart or that parent heart that worries about that. But we could do a quick, easy fix, and I could just satisfy you and say, you know what? We're going to ban all AR-15s. But what would happen next week when there's another shooting? So I'm not going to do that to you. What I will tell you is give you some facts. The last 17 out of 18 mass murders that were done with AR-15s were all mental health related. So why not deal with the cancer that is mental health? Why not deal with the fact that 1 in 4 people have a mental health issue, but if treated, they can live a perfectly normal life? But the problem we have in America is there are not a lot of mental health treatment centers. So you can't get availability for people who need it. If you go to a therapist, it's hard to find therapists. We don't have enough of them. And then when you get to them, insurance doesn't cover it. So by the time you pay cash, guess what? The medication you need, you're paying cash for that too. So you've got a lot of people now, especially kids from COVID, that are suffering from anxiety, depression, and PTSD, and there's no way to help them. So the first thing we'll do is we will address mental health, and we'll do it like the emergency that it is. The second thing is understand that we do have laws around guns, and let's make sure we enforce them. When you look at the Charleston shooting that we had in South Carolina, horrific. I mean, 9 amazing souls lost their life. When that killer went to get the gun, he had to go through a security check, right? And what happens is the feds are supposed to do the security check. But if they don't get it done in time, they're allowed to give the kid a gun. He would have been red flagged, and the feds didn't do their job. And he got that gun, and they died. Why can't we go and make sure at least those that are supposed to be doing their job do their job? And then understand, why would you take away the right of an individual to protect themselves when they know the bad people have guns out there? I'm a CWP holder. I'm a concealed weapons holder myself. So I do strongly believe in the Second Amendment. But look at where the shootings happen. Look at the malls and the campuses. What do those have in common? They're gun-free zones. So these cowards that go in to kill in areas where they know no one has a gun to protect themselves. You never see them. Recently we had this shooting, I think it was in Nashville. When they came out, he had 2 places he wanted to go. The first place wasn't a gun-free zone. The second place was. When you go and empower people to protect themselves, it reminds these killers that there's somebody else ready to protect everybody else too. When you go and remind them that we are a country of laws and we're going to do that, that's what happens. And then let's acknowledge the biggest thing. Where are most of the killings happening? Street crime. Get the unlawful guns off the streets. Officers are trying to do that now. You've got so many illegal guns on the streets. Get those off the streets, let law enforcement do their job, and address the street crime that is all over America. That's when we'll start to see things happen. So I will always tell you the truth. I will always tell you, yes, we can't be okay with what's happening, but I will also tell you that we will fix it, but we'll do it in a way that's not the quick, easy answer. We're going to do it in a way that we can say this, fix things, and know that next week you're not going to have to sit there and look at another shooting. Thank you.
Next question from the realms of the online. Tracy Ann Mohammed asks, how will you help with the housing crisis, especially the homeless population?
So you look at the situation with homeless, and I will go back again to the fact that look at all the mental health issues that we have. Not only that, when mental health is not treated, you see drug abuse kick in. And look at the lack of drug abuse centers that we have as well. So we are not caring for people who need it. And I saw this in South Carolina. What would happen is if you had someone that was homeless on the street and they had a mental health issue and they were having an attack or something happen, they would take them to the hospital and they'd keep them as long as they could, and then the hospital would get full and they'd take them out. Sometimes they'd take them to jail. Either way, it was temporary, and never did anyone actually fix the problem. It's why we need to have more telehealth available, so that we can deal with these mental health issues. If you bring them to the hospital, have a medical healthcare physician that can deal with mental health ready to talk to them, ready to deal with them. Instead of just taking them to jail and putting the key away, have someone there to address them and to deal with that. That's what we need to do. But more than that, my mom, when my mom raised me, she always said, you take care of those who take care of you. 33,000 of our veterans are homeless today. We should be ashamed of that. 33,000. 1 in 3 veterans has PTSD or suicidal thoughts. 17 veterans commit suicide every single day. 4 times as many post 9/11 troops and veterans die from suicide as opposed to combat. This is a crisis that we have. If we go and deal with mental health, not only will that fix crime, it'll fix homelessness, it'll fix our children, it'll fix so many things. Why do we keep looking over mental health? Why don't we acknowledge it for the cancer that it is? We're losing people to it. So we have to do that. And again, with homelessness, I'll tell you, as a governor, I looked at how do we lift these people up? Don't throw them away. Treat them with health care, give them a skill, partner them with a business, and let them feel productive again. Let them feel like what it means to be a person that contributes to society. Let's do the hard work, because I think these people are worth saving.
It's a back-to-back here on Online Questions. We had Rachel Spear. Can you present to us how your past experiences and roles have prepared you for what is needed in a president?
Well, you know, when I was governor, I took on a double-digit unemployment state. South Carolina was hurting. We had a lot of families in need, and we got to work. And so what we did was we turned South Carolina into an economic powerhouse. By the time I left, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz. We brought in Volvo. We had 5 international tire companies, and they were referring to us as the beast of the Southeast. And so we took 35,000 people from welfare to work. We made sure we got in our prisons. We had the lowest recidivism rate now in the country, and we made sure we had jobs put in every single county, and we trained our South Carolinians to do those jobs. Let's do that in America. Let's get back on track with that. And yes, I've been an executive. I've worked with the legislature, much like working with Congress. I know how we need to focus on getting things done, and what you learn as a governor, and what I will do as your president, is no, the first step is not what you're going to do with Congress. The first step is what you're going to do with your agencies. And when I was governor, we went and we made sure we had the right people at the top of every agency, not politicians, not donors. You put in people who know what it's like to deal with their consumer. The second thing is we sent people into every agency to clean house, pull down regulations, pull down old programs, pull down any troubled children. Make sure you clean it up so that it can actually serve the people it's supposed to serve. That's what I know is in South Carolina. I balanced a budget. I'm an accountant, so I fixed problems. And then you look at what I did at the United Nations. It's negotiating at the state level. It's negotiating at the foreign policy level. I had to negotiate with dictators and thugs. But I never lost sight of what it meant to keep America safe and to keep America respected. And so you need an executive that knows both of those things, domestic areas on how to lift up Americans and get us back to our national purpose, but also deal with all the enemies and the issues that we see abroad that we need to do to make sure we keep Americans safe. I've done that, and I'll do that again. And it's, for me, the challenge is not winning. That's only part of the challenge. The bigger challenge is proving to you that you made the right decision when I win. That's what we'll do.
Next question from Reed Gelser.
Yes, thanks very much for being here today. And through the remarks you've given so far, you've highlighted a number of things states' rights and the interesting experiment here in America with 50 states, and you've also had vast international experience. One of the concerns about transparency, which I'm very pleased to hear, and by the way, I'm very keen on your experience as an accountant, is baselines for accountability. There are countries around the world who have solved elements of our problems. They aren't the same country, but there are lessons to learn there. Finland, for example, has done some marvelous things with homelessness, drug addiction, and education, also Portugal and other areas. Some of those programs actually originated in the US. Similarly, financial crimes seem to be going through the roof, and the amount of money being diverted illicitly from taxpayers and from tax coffers going into that sector, this massive bailout of late. So with those kinds of things in mind, how do you see the federal government under your administration advancing accountability and transparency in key areas so we can actually benchmark over time? How are we actually doing?
Well, and I think that's the accountant in me, right? So I think the first thing is what I did in South Carolina is we made every agency transparent. You could see every ounce of their spending. You could see exactly where it was going. Taxpayers got to see it, not just I got to see it. I wanted taxpayers to see it because it put accountability on those agencies to prove to the people who were paying for them that they were getting a return on investment. So I think transparency cures all things. How do we deal with the economy first? First, let's claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that we know exist. Then instead of the 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that we know is out there. Then if 15% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Quit borrowing. They have to live within their means. If I had to balance a budget in South Carolina, you have to balance a budget at home. Why is Congress the only group that's exempt from balancing a budget? Let's go through and make sure we do that. So if we stop the spending, we stop the borrowing, we stop the earmarks, and then we focus on our debt, then we go back and start getting responsible again. I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. They say Republicans and Democrats don't agree on anything. They love to waste your money, and they love to spend it. So let's start holding them accountable in what they do. With the agencies, what I saw as governor, agencies spend out of the fear they won't get the same budget the next year. So when I would go into my agencies in South Carolina, you'd open closets and there'd be just towers of computers, of printers, of paper, of all of these things. And so I started making them, I challenged them to give money back to the taxpayer and told them we would reward them if they gave money back to the taxpayer. Agencies started to compete against each other to go and show how effective and efficient they were. I made it transparent so that you knew. I made sure the legislature acknowledged them and praised them when they turned around and did that. We need to do that back with our agencies in doing that. And let's focus on this debt. Our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And not only that, what other spending can we control? When I was at the United Nations, and we were condemned by the entire world for moving our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, I was so furious, I went back to my office and I told my staff, I said, I want you to put a book together. I want you to list all 193 countries. I want the second column to be the percentage of times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And I want the third column to be how much foreign aid we give them. And I took that book and I gave it to President Trump. He lost his mind over it. And I said, look, I'm not saying that you give foreign aid based on a percentage vote at the UN, but that should be one of the things we look at. Quit trying to buy friends. Quit paying off enemies. We gave $46 billion in foreign aid last year. Do you know who we gave it to? Pakistan, that tried to harbor terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. Iraq, that has Iranian influence that says death to America every day. Zimbabwe, the most anti-American African country out there. Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia as they invade Ukraine. Communist Cuba, we name them a state sponsor of terrorism and we give them money. And the one that's unthinkable, we give money to China. How weak do we look? And then I just saw Biden's doing a $500,000 to give transgender kids in Pakistan to learn how to speak English. When I am president, we will stop giving money to countries that hate America, and we will get smart with what we spend taxpayer dollars on. Thank you.
Gail Taylor has the next question.
Speaking of you at the United Nations, many conservatives advocate for U.S. withdrawal from certain international involvements, including the United Nations, for many reasons, including the financial burden of being a member, or that being a member of the UN requires the United States to adhere to international agreements and regulations that may limit its autonomy and ability to act independently. What do you say to people who believe we should withdraw from the United Nations?
Well, I will tell you, the United Nations is not for the faint at heart. Every day I went in, I felt like I was putting on body armor because I knew there'd be a fight. I just didn't know which country we were fighting that day. And if you look at the United Nations, the idea of it was good, right? You put 193 countries in a room in the name of peace. That sounds great. The problem is it doesn't take into account that all 193 countries have different values. They have different motivations. And so it has become a farce. And so I saw when I was at the United Nations that, and I said to them when I left, if they really want the United Nations to be relevant, they've got to start talking about things that are uncomfortable to talk about. That's what I did to them. I always pushed the envelope and made them talk about things that are uncomfortable. Why have they not had a hearing on COVID? Why are they not talking about so many of the things that we've seen, whether it's Iran trying to build a bomb, all of these violations of UN resolutions? Why do they not do it? Why are they not talking about the human rights abuses that are happening in China right now with the million Muslim Uyghurs, making them change their name, change their religion, sexual abuse? They don't talk about it because it's too uncomfortable to talk about. So I have said the United Nations is a farce, and I called out every wrong I ever saw. We got out of the Paris Climate Agreement, not because America doesn't want clean air and clean water and put value in our environment. We do. But because they put all these heavy regulations on America, and then I looked at China, and the only regulation on China was that they would look into it in 10 years. I dealt with China enough to know 10 years never comes. So it's not fair, it's not right. So the question then is, and in my first year, we cut $2 billion that they were spending. I mean, we immediately, and that was just low-hanging fruit. We immediately, that was my goal, was to start cutting money so that you would have a return on investment. So then you say, well, why does America stay? There's only one reason America stays in a farce like that, and that is because in the Security Council, where they make most of the international rulings, there are only 5 vetoes. The US, Russia, China, France, and the UK. Any resolution that comes up, it only takes one of them to veto it and it goes away. The reason the US stays is to keep bad things from happening, because otherwise Russia and China would just run shot all over it. But what I do think is you have to have an ambassador at the United Nations that's going to hold their feet to the fire. We have to constantly be pushing. I had a group of people, and their sole job was to look at what Chinese influence was all throughout the United Nations, and we were supposed to knock it down every single time. I made sure that the spending didn't get out of control. I made sure all of these humanitarian efforts that they were doing, that they had an exit strategy to get them out and not just stay there forever. We have to stay conscious on that. And not only that, China pays the dues of a developing country while we pay regular dues. There's a lot wrong with the UN, but it's the veto that keeps America in.
Interesting. Thank you.
As we wrap up here, Ambassador, one last question for you on the UN. It sounds like it was quite an ordeal. Is there anything you miss about serving there?
I loved my job at the United Nations. I've been blessed in my life to serve the country serve the state that raised me and defend the country I love so much. And so it was a blessing. And I loved being honest with those countries and telling them what was wrong and how we could partner with them and make it right. And so, yes, I miss the negotiating. I miss fighting for America. I mean, that was something that I was blessed to do, and I wouldn't trade it.
All right. Ambassador Haley, we thank you for joining us on Conversation
Thank
with
you
the
so
Candidate.
much.
Thank you so much to our studio audience of Town Hall. Great questions from our New Hampshire voters here. And thanks for watching, you at home online here. We appreciate your time on Conversation with the Candidate.